Good morning, Rutherford County. It's good to be with you again today. This is Connie Davies. I'm here in the Blue Room at WCAB with my good friend Ann Roper. I've known Ann Roper, I don't know, how many years have you been here, Ann?
That's about 20.
20 years. So I've known her at least 20 years.
Yeah.
But the thing about Ann is our paths don't cross very often. Yeah, we don't see each other that much except at church. But you know, Ann is one of those people that although I may never see her or talk to her, I feel like she's a close sister. But I feel that way about everybody in her church, actually. So it's no different. But Ann's got a tremendous testimony of how God has watched over her and been faithful to her and has spared her life numerous times. And you know, one thing I love about coming on the radio show with some of our members that are sharing their testimonies is that I know that some of you out there need to be encouraged. I know that some of you out there are going through some tough times or have been through some tough times or maybe facing some tough times. We need to be reminded every day that God is with us. That God is faithful, that God is protecting us and watching over us when we turn to Him, and how much encouragement we gain when we look at those testimonies and we consider the faithfulness of God.
That's right.
And that's what I was thinking this morning when I was coming to the radio show. You know, God, is there somebody that's going to listen to this show today that's going to need to be encouraged today to be reminded that you're there.
That's right.
And that you'll never leave or forsake those that cry out to you. And so without any further waste of time here, I'm going to let Ann go ahead and start her testimony because she's got quite a bit to share with you this morning. So Ann, go ahead.
As she said, I'm Ann Roper. Just give you a little basis about my family. My dad passed away some years back. My mom and my sister and my brother live here. And from there, my brother and I were born in West Virginia. We left there when we were quite young, 5 years old maybe. And my mom and dad moved to North Carolina. So we've been here pretty much ever since. Had a little stint stay in Myrtle Beach for a while, then back here where I belonged. And from there, God has really been with me my entire life. Even the times when I chose to do things wrong, I knew inside and nobody had to tell me what I was doing was wrong. But out of my strong rebellion, I chose to do what I wanted to do. Even as a small child, I did whatever. I would obey. Sometimes there was, most of the time, always a growl in my heart when I did it. But I still rebelled, and I didn't submit with my whole heart. So as we all were here in North Carolina, we all went to school in North Carolina, and I was the youngest of the three. And from there, as we went through school, I never cared for school at all. That's where all my friends were, but I never cared for school. There was nothing that made no desire in my heart that I wanted to keep going. If I made it out, I was out, and I was never turning back. And I had a few teachers along the way that kind of helped that way of thinking, but it wasn't the will of God for my life.
Exactly.
So as I went on through school, you know, the rebellion was real terrible. You get in relationships that you should have never, ever been in, and your father's thoughts never should have been in. And it damages you inside. It does. Even though it seems like you come out clean and there's nothing there, inside of your heart, there's things there that God has to go back in and feel. Exactly. And if you don't allow Him to do that, you know, your load gets heavier and heavier in your heart.
That's right.
And God He didn't want us to do that.
Exactly.
His load is easy. He carries it for us. We don't. We shouldn't. And so as I went on through school, high school, and I got out, I just, that inside, that desire has always been there. I didn't at that point ever try to go forward really strong with it. I always did stuff with our youth group. That was always there. There was a lot of interesting things. You saw how other people walked, you know, young people. And it was like, you know, I don't know if I could ever do that or not. Because I never saw myself in the public talking to people and helping others come out and talk. I was okay just to stay back there and let everybody else come forward. And I've been pretty much like that most of my life. But God began to change that. Little things that I did as I went away. God's plan for us is not to be isolated.
Exactly.
And it's not that we're not supposed to be a one man, I can do everything myself. And you need some help. No, I got it. Go ahead. So, with our dad dying, he had diabetes that was really, really bad and was not able to help us a lot. And so we all, the children, jumped in to help Mama with whatever she needed. And if that was doing yard work or painting a house or trying to shingle a house, we tried, but at that time, the help was very welcomed. That was a very hard job. But from there, my mom knew that she could always call on us and we would be there. We all lived different places after we got out. But if Mom needed something, she knew just to pick up the phone and say, I'm 4 foot snowed in the driveway and I've got to go to work. Can you come help? So my sister and I would jump in the car and up the road we'd go with our shovels and we'd shovel her out, And from there, we were involved when we lived at home at different charismatic churches. And we went and, you could feel the Spirit of God moving at times. But it was just enough that it pricked your heart that there was more. You didn't see more. We looked for more. And looking for more is where I wound up moving to the coast with my sister. And we were in a full gospel church there. And it seemed to be things were going pretty well, but it's like it never satisfied that one place in your heart that there was that total peace. And I didn't know where to look for that peace at the time. We weren't really fed a lot. There was a lot of things there to do, a lot of activities to do. There was a church ministry up there with being on TV. And at that time I was not working. So I got involved with that. And I helped them build it and construct it and went down and helped the TV station work on their generator and work on their transmitter and go out there at 4 o'clock in the morning and push those buttons, kind of like Jim does, to get things going. But from there, that was interesting to me. That was something I liked. So I stayed out there at that transmitter site at Myrtle Beach in the swamps for a couple of years. And as I was there, we were building the transmitter site at Myrtle Beach, basically. And it was pretty neat. I learned a whole lot of things there. And you could see people come in. You could see a difference when this one came in and this one came in. Even though they were known people, there was a difference of what and how they were giving you Jesus in there.
Exactly.
And it's like, what have they got? What is it? And it took a while for me to be able to start to recognize and see there's something different in these people.
Right.
And it just put that seed back in my heart to say, where can you find a place that these people are talking about?
Right.
So from way back, God had put that there. And I just kept saying, Jesus, where is that place? Where is that place? And so we learned about a place up here towards the mountains. Always wanted to come to the mountains, and I never knew why I wanted to come to the mountains.
Make sure you're speaking there. Yeah, make sure you're speaking there.
Until I actually came here for seminars. Once I came here for seminars, I began to see this is that place that I felt in my heart. that I had been looking for. So when I'd come to seminars, the people would be singing, praise and worship, and then the word would come forth. And all I could do is sit there and just cry.
Mm-hmm.
It was just like a river. It wasn't anything I worked up. It wasn't anything I could do. I couldn't even stop it. And it was just like it was washing some of that stuff away. And, when you got some old tools and you leave them out in the yard for a while, they get kind of rusty.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta work on all that hard, rusty part till you get to the part that it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
So, you go through life and you gather these things that you thought you enjoyed. And it's sin, and it's not something that God intended you to go through.
And many times those things that you're looking for is that trying to fill that void that you're hungering for, that you're talking about. You always knew that there was something more to life, and all the things you had accumulated wasn't it.
That's it. That's exactly right. And, coming up, our family was probably like the normal family who didn't know Jesus, And we did the things that you were supposed to do. We went to church, and, we were always nice to people. We never grew up being hard and crude to other people. Now, we didn't actually know how to give our heart to each other or anything like that. But we did, we did what we knew to do at the place where we were.
Right.
And so from there, as children, we grew up in school. We learned how you do things, and you're thinking as a child, why do I need this in school? Never knowing that God was laying another brick on your foundation that he wanted you to have, And then from, you see all this as you look back, because while you're in the pit, you don't think there's a way out, but there is a way out.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things, that you have laid in your heart, the sores that you don't know that it's something that God can plant in your heart, but the devil plants in your heart also, because he wants to do everything he can that you don't find Jesus.
Exactly.
He
works overtime to make sure we never find.
And he'll put people in your path and groups of people in your path. And on the outside, this looked pretty good. They look like they're doing all right. And you get in it behind the scene and you find out that's not the way God, something inside will tell you that's not the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you make that reverse and you get out of it, And then when we coming forward in life, once we came up here to visit for seminars, you begin to see that there are things different when you go back home, and that nugget of truth of something was in there that God put in your heart, and it starts just working on you, because you have these questions of, I don't understand. Why do I feel so much different, better? And it feels like my heart is changing. What is it? So as the time went by, we came for more seminars, And then I know that God spoke to me to move here. It wasn't nothing nobody told me. It wasn't anything my family told me I needed to do. It was something God spoke to my heart, that I was to pack up and move. And in talking with my mom, when I shared it with her, she said, I have the same thing. Let's go. And so we packed up our family and we all came.
Sounds like Abraham.
Yeah. And so here we are, my brother, my sister, my mom, me, we're all here together, and we're living and searching for what we knew is right. school never was something I liked. Never. So from there, I knew God had spoke to my heart to go back to school. I said, oh, Jesus, I don't know if I want to go back to school. And he spoke it again. I want you to go back to school. Why am I going to school? And he put it in my heart to go to school to be a nurse. And I thought, oh, I can never do that, But he put the desire, the will, the grace, and the ability to be able to go through school and make it. Mm-hmm. And as I was there were so many classmates that you could just come up and say a word and say, how you doing today? Mm-hmm. You look like you're a little down. Mm-hmm. You're all right. And my teachers, they were always there to talk to. They always knew that if something was not right and everybody was talking and you couldn't hear them, I would be the one that raised my hand to say, mm-hmm. Can I say something? Mm-hmm. And I turned and I would address the other much younger classmates that some of us really want to learn.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And, afterwards, they would always come back and say, thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So we moved from the nursing on to, I had different jobs. I worked in hospitals mostly, and I did some home health. And as I became the nurse and I began to work in the field, and I began to see that you can be a hard nurse where it has caused you to be callous because of the things that you see and you feel. And I knew I didn't want to be that way. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be somebody that could reach out to them, because that was always in my heart, in the back, mm-hmm. in my background, but I never knew that was how I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So from there, when I went through school,
what's your time to?
Yeah, I was. Mm-hmm. So I went through school, and when I came out, there was a lady in our church that got very, very sick, and she wound up on a ventilator, and she needed help right now. Mm-hmm. And when the family came and asked me about would I be working to work with her, sure. And so that we worked all the details out with the agency she was with, and I began to go in her home every day. And we developed a very close relationship where she trusted me. And when you're on a ventilator, you've got to trust mm-hmm. the person who's caring for you. Exactly. We went through some really tough times. We were there for 2.5 years, working with her every day, accomplished everything she wanted to have accomplished. We prayed together. We went to church together. I became their family. So in that, I met her son, and we became close friends there. And after his mom died 2.5 years later, we began to have a relationship and started going out together. And later that became a marriage. Mm-hmm. And he is one of the sweetest, nicest men mm-hmm. that God has put in my life. Previously, I had been married before, and it was not that way. It was a terrible marriage. It was an abusive marriage, and I never wanted to go that way again. Mm-hmm. So when I met Steve, and God said, this is who you're going to marry. Mm-hmm. God spoke to him too. And so that's
a miracle.
It is.
It's a miracle.
Because both of us came from very wounded mm-hmm. backgrounds. Mm-hmm. And both of us had our heels dug. We will not ever get married again. Mm-hmm. But when you feel that way, that's not God's plan for you.
Exactly.
Because God's got somebody for you that will help you find those places in your heart and take you to Jesus.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of person you need to marry, mm-hmm. those people that you're going to take each other to God.
Exactly.
So during this time, Steve and I have been married about 4 years, and I became really sick. I developed pneumonia from a bacterial infection in my lung, both lungs. I wound up in Mission Hospital, ICU for 10 days. Very very critical. Did not think I was going to live through it. A doctor or two told my husband, the kind of pneumonia she has, not many people survive through that. I wound up with ICU for 10 days on a ventilator, chest tube in the right lung, chest tube in the left lung. I was in a medicated coma where they didn't want my lungs to breathe because they were so damaged.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of necrosis, which is beginning holes in the lungs. The outcome did not look good at all. Even in ICU, the nurses would come in, the supervisor would come in. And being in that medicated coma, your body's not having to work,
Mm-hmm.
but you can still hear.
Mm-hmm.
You still have that ability to hear people. And while I was in ICU, every time my pastor came, I heard her. And I heard her speak God's voice in my ear that you're going to make it.
Mm-hmm.
You keep fighting.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make it.
That's right.
And it gave me something to hold on to.
Exactly.
Because I could hear the nurses talking. Doesn't look very good for her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's still here this morning?
Mm.
So the head nurse came in and she said, it's time for her to come off that ventilator. Why haven't y'all taken her off? And a friend of mine was there, and she said, it's not going to be hard to take her off. Just let me tell her I'm here. She'll be okay. So she came in. I heard her speak in my ear. She said, I'm here today with you. I had it on my heart. I wanted to come spend today with you. And the nurses told me they want to take you off a ventilator. And she said, she'll be okay if she knows I'm here. And so at that time, they began to take me off. They said it was not a struggle. I just came off. Just like you handed me a cup of water. I just came right off. And that was the will of God for me, because God did not design for me to die at that point. There had been many places that I could have died, but God's hand was always there to protect me.
And for those of you that are listening in, what Ann has said is just a very general overview, because I remember those days at the church when we heard what was going on with her, and it was a very serious time. I mean, really, it didn't look like you were on a thread. Yeah. And there was a greater likelihood of you not making it in the natural than making it. Yes. And it was only the keeping power of God on your life and the grace of God on your life at that time that brought you through that.
That's right.
And we know that.
And when you're in a medicated coma, you still can hear. Your spirit man is still alive, and he can hear, and he can pray. And hearing everybody say things, I know inside my spirit man was just wailing out, God, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Jesus, help me. And one day, when I was praying out, just from the bottom of my heart, it was as if I was like Zacchaeus up in a tree. Mm-hmm. And I climbed up as high as I could go, because I wanted to see Jesus come by, because I knew he had something for me. Exactly. And so God came and he spoke to me. And he said, I have come to your house today.
That's right.
To bring salvation to you and
right.
your household.
That's right.
If you want it. And I began inside just to cry out and wail out, Jesus, I do want you. I do want you, Jesus.
Right.
I want to live with you in heaven.
Right.
And so from there, I felt him come in my heart. And I felt inside, I can make it. I don't care what these doctors are saying. God came to me, and I can make it.
That's right.
And at this time, after I got out of the hospital, I found out then the whole church was praying 24 hours a day.
That's right.
There would be little children saying, can I pray for Ann today? Can I pray for Ann? Mm-hmm. And they, in their classes, they would pray and they would pray. And when I heard all this after I came off the ventilator, it just touched my heart. So I just wept. Everybody that was visiting, they left. And I would just, Jesus, thank you for saving my life.
That's right.
Thank you for saving my life.
That's right.
I said, I'll never turn my back on you.
That's right.
Thank you for coming. You've been there for me every time I cried out to you.
That's right.
You were always there for me.
That's right.
Even in those times of great sin, and I cried out to Jesus, he was there. But this was one time that I didn't know if I was going to come out. I'd hear my husband, he'd be patting my hands and holding my hands the whole time I was there. And he said a doctor had told him later, he said, 90-something% of the people who have just the pneumonia that you had don't make it. And then he told me all this other stuff that was going on. That it was obvious I shouldn't have made it.
You shouldn't. In the natural, there was
no way to make it.
Exactly.
But God's hand was there, and God said, you were going to make it.
That's right.
And so from there, I turned, told my husband, I said, we are going to God.
That's right.
And so, there's been times he's had to tug me. There's been times I've had to tug him. But the foundation that God laid in my heart,
absolutely,
we're going to make it, and my family's going to make it, because that's what God said. My family is big. I have a large family. And he said, we are going to make it.
We are going to make it.
We're going to make it. And when we're in church and songs come and stuff like that, it's different cries that come out in those songs. And Jesus, I'm driving my stake in the ground. I am going to make it. And just put those things in my heart you want me to do for others.
That's right.
And in that, as a nurse, I have those patients every day that I can love on, and I can put in them what God has put in me.
That's exactly right. And you have a lot to give, Ann, and you only touched the high points of the things that God has done for you.
Yeah.
And, I think the message for the listeners today is that we can make it.
We can.
We can make it. And Jesus told her, I'm coming to your house today to bring salvation to your house. I believe there are some people out there listening today that God is speaking that to you. And
Absolutely.
You know who you are. And let God come in. Just open the door.
That's
God
right.
says, I stand at the door. I knock.
Knock.
And some people, it takes God knocking on their door for years and years and years before they open.
That's right.
But you know what? Once you open the door and you let Jesus come in and you let him help you. We were at the nursing home yesterday, and the message that we had is all it takes is faith.
That's right.
God is a great God.
Yes.
We sing how great thou art. God is a great God.
Yes.
But we have to let him be great in our lives.
That's right.
We have to let him. How many people stood in the crowds and they observed, they watched, they were spectators. They watched what Jesus was doing.
That's right.
And Jesus healed.
Yes.
Jesus delivered. Jesus set people free.
Yes.
But not everybody received it because they were the spectators. They didn't press into God. And there was always something in your heart, Ann. Even in the midst of your sin, there was always something in your heart. You knew that God was real. He was there somewhere. And you had to press in to find him.
That's right.
And you know what? God says that if we seek him, we will find him. So let that be encouragement to you today.
Yes.
Please, thank you so much for listening. If you want to go back and listen to some of the other testimonies of our members, we've been here now for almost a year and a half, refuting some of the lies said about our church. But one of the best ways of refuting the lies is to share our testimonies. But you can go and listen to our testimonies, listen to some of the messages that we have online at www.wordoffaithfellowship.org. And we invite you to join us again on Wednesday.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ann, for coming.